I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the News du Jour, a calmer space to consume the news. I wanted to let you guys know here at the top, I'm recording this a lot later than usual. I had an extra busy day today, so it's been kind of hectic and running around, and this just got recorded a lot later than usual. Anywho, we have some longer stories to jump into today. A lot of them are crime related for some reason today. We also have a mini story here at the top. So let's go ahead and get into the details. For this first mini story, I want to let you guys know that tornadoes are on the rise in the South. And it seems that this may be becoming a trend. And now, as someone who comes from Oklahoma, we know the destruction that can come from a single tornado. But the American South has actually reported 30 tornadoes in the past week, you guys. That is nuts. And they have been nothing short of destructive. Climate crisis is here and it is only set to get worse. So hold on to your hats, guys, and let's be solution focused. Next up for today, have to issue a content warning on this story because it involves the murder and abuse of a child. So if you're not up for that today, skip on ahead. But we are discussing the case of Athena Brownfield. So Athena Brownfield was a little girl living right here in Oklahoma. And this story is one that honestly will haunt me forever, you guys. So just buckle up because this one is really tough. On January 10th, Athena's older sister, Adina, who is only 5, was seen by a mail carrier playing alone outside of her home and kind of just wandering about aimlessly by herself. And God bless this mail carrier who asked if the little girl was okay and what was going on. She said that she couldn't find her sister, that she was hungry, and that she was, quote, sick of being alone, end quote. And that just didn't sit right with the postal worker, and they decided to help this child. The postal worker then brings the child to police, and it quickly becomes apparent that both of the guardians of these children were out of town, and the mom, I'm using air quotes here because she wasn't actually the mother to these girls legally or biologically, but she was in Oklahoma City with a new boyfriend, and the father was in Arizona with their 4 older children. The girls had seemingly been left alone, but one of them was missing. And one thing I want to note really quickly here, I was kind of shocked when I saw the pictures of this family because in a lot of the pictures, the parents look like well off, well groomed, not wealthy, but just maybe wealthy. I mean, you couldn't really tell. But the children, on the other hand, they had very apparent bruises. They just looked like they weren't taken care of, and they had a bunch of children. So it was kind of a very jarring experience sort of diving into this because it's very clear the parents were taking care of themselves. I will put it that way. But being in Oklahoma, back to the story, being in Oklahoma, the entire town began looking for this little girl, intent on finding her. Everyone was pitching in. Even when the police asked or decided to halt the trash pickup, everyone just put their trash on the street so the police could go through it if they wanted to. This town was doing whatever it was going to take to find this little girl. And as time goes on, it was discovered that neither girl had been taken to see a doctor or go to school or really anything that a normal parent should be doing to care for their children. Once the parents were located, the wife quickly confessed that her estranged husband had beaten the 4-year-old little girl, Athena, to death and disposed of her body on Christmas Day. That blows my mind. The day that should be the happiest day of a child's whole year, memories that they're going to make to last a lifetime of just pure joy. That's when they were killing this little girl. It is beyond heartbreaking. Now, it's been made clear that the girls were not the biological children of the people responsible here. They even carry different last names. But what is unclear is what actually is the relationship between all of them. And let me just say, the rumor mill is running with this. I have heard, and to be clear, these are only rumors, but I've heard things like they could have been cousins, or that they potentially adopted these girls through a Facebook group, like an unofficial adoption kind of thing. Apparently, and again, this is rumor strictly. This is not something I know for a fact, but apparently the grandmother was watching the 2 little girls, and the mom had a fight with the grandmother, or falling out of some sort with the grandmother, some type of beef with her. And so she just came and picked the little girls up one day and took them away from the grandmother, really without further explanation, and left them with this family. And again, we don't know how they came in contact with one another, but apparently it is a thing to rehome children like a pet. I had no idea that type of thing goes on online or on Facebook. And to me, it smells like human trafficking, but just putting it out there. Either way, the police have declined to comment on this subject repeatedly. So there's potential that additional charges may be coming in regards to how these little girls ended up in these people's care in the first place. But the father here, Ivan, was extradited from Arizona back to Oklahoma, and he's being charged with murder of this little girl, and neglect. And I think the wife has similar charges, but this is something that is just become so tragic. They eventually did find her body, thanks to the confession of the wife. It was on a property that I think they'd previously owned, but she pretty much told them where to find this little girl, and it was just heartbreaking all around. There's really no other way to slice it, but we will definitely keep you guys posted on this case as it continues to unfold. We hope Athena rests in peace, and our thoughts and prayers and all of our well wishes are to her older sister, Adina, who obviously has a long road ahead of her to recover from what she has just been through. Next up, we have another crime story. This also comes with a content warning that this story involves both murder and torture. So a Sicilian mafia boss was captured, you guys. And this is almost like, a mafia scene from a movie playing out in Sicily, where my family is originally from. So I feel like I have personal connections to both the locations of these crimes. But if you've never heard of the Cosa Nostra before, I grew up knowing what these things are. But if you don't, I'm going to break it all down. They're a mafia or gang, basically an organized crime family. The English word mafia actually can be translated to mafioso, which basically just means like swagger or a boldness or bravado. And I think this is a characteristic that causes, American audiences to glamorize, idealize, glorify these types of mob families in film because, there is a swagger about the whole thing. The words Cosa Nostra translate to our thing, and this particular group actually dates back to the 19th century and is incredibly huge and widespread. And as always, at the center of these types of groups, there is typically a grandfather type figure who rules the roost. Every order comes from him, and he demands unwavering loyalty and respect from everyone around him. And that figure for the Cosa Nostra was Matteo Messina Denaro. And he has been Italy's most wanted criminal since 1993. In fact, not just in Italy, he was wanted all across Europe and was hunted for decades by Europol. They had so many close encounters too. At one point, they thought they had tracked him down and they arrested some British guy instead who looked a lot like him. Another time, they went to capture him at a farmhouse and he had like narrowly escaped. They even found his DNA there right after. So that he is very elusive, if you will. But where did they find him? Of all the places that they've looked for him, he was tucked away in the motherland, still likely doling out orders in Sicily. He was at a center for cancer treatment and apparently may have been dealing with colon cancer. But before you go feeling sorry for this guy, this man has so many life sentences on his head. But let's go through some of his most notable crimes. They include the torture and killing of an 11-year-old boy who was the son of a rival, fatal bombings in Milan, Florence, and Rome, and the killings of 2 of his rival bosses. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. He once bragged publicly about having killed enough people to, quote, fill a cemetery, end quote. Local leaders are celebrating this as a sign to their children that the mafia is not untouchable, that they can eventually be brought to justice and hopefully one day defeated. He is being held in a secret location so as to ward off any attempts to get him messages or to have messages delivered from him. This type of leader is dangerous even behind bars. At the end of the day, these families are violent criminals and essentially serial killers. Those who actually do the killing and conduct various types of torture are often found to have sociopathic tendencies. And I personally have a lot of disdain for these groups that have terrorized communities all over the world. They may call themselves a family, but at the end of the day, they're just murderers. And last step for today, I'm going to try and be quick about this, but it is important to talk about. We have hit the U.S. debt ceiling. So the U.S. has been taking on debt for generations now, mass amounts of it. And it's kind of become something we accept and we don't think too much about. But it's always kind of running in the background. And now we have officially hit our debt limit. What does that mean? What happens now? Let's dive into it. First and foremost, I want to be clear that this has nothing to do with decisions that Biden has made as president. He's just kind of the one left holding the bag. This issue has been perpetrated by a long line of presidents. The last president to actually decrease the national debt was Calvin Coolidge, y'all, who left office in 1929. So there is no innocent party here. Every single president in our lifetimes has passed the buck and increased our national debt. And now we have actually hit the debt limit, and the U.S. Treasury is going to have to begin a series of accounting tactics to basically stop the hemorrhaging. In the past, we have just kept kind of raising the debt limit, and where does it end? Like the debt cap is currently $31.4 trillion, and Biden is looking to raise that cap yet again, but Congress isn't so sure. Republicans specifically said they would not vote to raise the debt limit unless Biden proposes strict spending cuts, so that we're not finding ourselves in this situation a few months or years down the line. It's just been that typical kicking the ball down the field maneuver. The Treasury said that they have found the funds to keep federal employees paid until June. So before then, Congress and Biden have to come to the middle and find themselves a compromise. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "Confidence is quiet, but insecurities are loud." If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to listen. A rate and review or shout out on social media would mean the world to us and help us be able to keep creating the news du jour. But the best way to support all of our work is to become a patron at www.patreon.com/sugarfreemedia. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram and just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from